She popped my balloon. All of the actors screamed and she just took my hand and led me away. I died of a brain aneurysm at age 57. I had never before felt the feeling of like so much agency. I really felt like I was just in another world for the few hours I was in that show.
Experiential Director at Secret Cinema, Dean Rodgers has spent over a decade pioneering live immersive experiences, from escape rooms to the iconic Crystal Maze live experience. His mission, creating unforgettable experiences that bring people together through collective awe.
When I say not all slop is AI, I think you're seeing a lot of entertainment media that is just recycling, just repackaging stuff we've done before. There's a moment during the trench run at the end of A New Hope. The entire audience is in this big kind of trench space, and we flew an X-Wing over all of the audience's heads. That was a moment of like, we need to do something truly excellent to be like, oh, I really am in Star Wars now. We work together to give our audience the best night out of their year. And I think another company saying that would sound hyperbolic, but like we do mean it. A Secret Cinema show for a lot of people is the best night out of their year. Safe choices companies have been making for the last 4 or 5 years are just not going to fly anymore. That's where I think we are at. And I think we at Secret Cinema are very aware of that. And we know that that's the key to survival and the key to this next phase.
Dean, welcome to the Experienced Designers.
Yeah, great. So good to finally be here. We've been trying to get this in the diary for quite a while now, so it's good to finally make it.
Yeah, it does give that a little bit of extra satisfaction, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Dean, just a quickie, where are we sitting right now?
We're sitting at the offices of Secret Cinema. We're based here in London on the Strand. Really lovely office space that we're very glad to have.
So this is where the magic happens.
This is where the planning of the magic happens.
Nice.
The real magic happens at our venues with our audiences.
Yes. So Dean, you've let's just start with a bit of a backstory, if we may, because I'm really curious, because like many people in the experience design field, it's never a straightforward one. And I think you've described your one as a bit of a weird one. I think I quote.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about your weird journey and some of the key anchors in your journey to perhaps even just to us sitting here today in the Experience Designers podcast and
for sure.
journey for you.
I mean, I say it's a weird journey, but with the caveat of, as you say, everyone's journey in this sector is a bit weird. But I trained as a theatre director. And I very, very much was on that path. And then I saw my first ever immersive theatre show in about 2013. And I said, that's what I want to do. And so off the back of that, I directed a show with a couple of friends called Heist, in which we took over a 5-story building in central London. We placed a painting on the 5th floor and we challenged audiences to commit a robbery. So we had our audiences break into the building and steal from us. And this was a tiny show made on spit and gaff tape that was supposed to run for 4 weeks. And it ended up being a complete runaway hit and running for 9 months. Wow. And so that was like the start of my career, really.
Yeah.
And that was like 2014, I think. And so off the back of that, I got asked to design an escape room. And at the time, I had no idea what an escape room was, but I was also 24 and broke. So I said, yes, of course, I'll do that. And I worked with my friend Nick Moran, and we created an escape room called Time Run, and Time Run is still today, it's sadly not open anymore, but still regarded as one of the best escape rooms in UK history. We're very proud of it. And then after that, with my friend Tom Maguire, we co-founded and set up the Crystal Maze live experience, which is the UK's longest running live game experience, still open on Shaftesbury Avenue today. And so to do that, we launched like a crowdfunding campaign. We raised £1 million, just under £1 million. Very annoying that it is just under £1 million as well, but we just got to live with that. Just under £1 million we raised in a couple of weeks to put the Crystal Maze on. And then off the back, so since then, I started my own company called Road Productions, and we made lots of escape rooms, brand experiences, immersive theatre shows all across the UK and America as well. And then in 2020, a global pandemic occurred. So I closed the door on Road Productions, and then I went into the world of brand experiences for a little while. So I worked with a really amazing brand experience agency called Bearded Kitten as their head of immersive, did that for a couple of years. And then just as I was getting itchy feet, just as I thought I was looking for my next move, I saw a job post by Secret Cinema. And I just knew that's the dream. I first applied to work with Secret Cinema in 2013 when I saw the Shawshank Redemption. I just applied to be an intern and they never got back. Well, they took 12 years, but they got back to me. So yeah, so so now I work at Secret Cinema. I work primarily with our studio, with our studio arm, which I'll talk a bit more about later. But I'm our experiential director, so I look after kind of business development, new projects, a bit of creative, a bit of commercial. Kind of get to do a bit of everything. It's really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I just go back though? You just said something right at the beginning, super interesting. When you went to your first like immersive experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what was going like through your eyes in that moment when you went through it? Like what was going on? What were you seeing and more importantly feeling that kind of triggered this response in the sense of you saying, I want to do this. This is something I want to do.
Yeah, I guess when I was training as a director, I felt very aware that I really like theatre and I really like making theatre and I was really good at directing actors, but I didn't know what kind of theatre I wanted to make. Like I didn't know what a Dean Rodgers show looked like, and so I was kind of like searching for that and doing a bit of soul searching. And I was seeing lots of stuff, and you see a lot of very weird stuff when you're studying theatre. There's lots of great, weird, wonderful things. And so I saw the show Shelf Life, and it just completely changed my life. I came out of it and went, well, that's the kind of show I want to make. 100%. Yeah. That feeling I had throughout that show is the feeling I want to make other people have. I'll tell you a bit about the show because it was by a company called Half Cut, who they don't exist anymore, sadly. But this was kind of the early days of immersive theatre when there were lots of different companies and it was a bit more of a Wild West. But at the start of the show, you were given a white balloon that was empty. It wasn't filled up yet. And you were told to walk down a giant red corridor, and you were told literally nothing else. You're walking down this giant red corridor with this white balloon in your hand. And then eventually you step out of a giant vagina and you're in a maternity ward. And all the doctors are acting like you're a baby that's just gotten born. You get put in a bed, you get wheeled off. And then your balloon gets blown up and you're a person now. And then you go from being a baby, you get taken to preschool, you go to school, you go to the playground, and then eventually you go to a school disco, you go to high school, and then you grow up, you get your first job, it's rubbish, you get married, and then the whole time we were doing this, there was a woman all in black with a black balloon following us the whole time. She never spoke, she never did anything. And right when I was looking to buy a timeshare on the Costa del Sol, she popped my balloon and all of the actors screamed and she just took my hand and led me away.
Oh, you died.
I died of a brain aneurysm at age 57. And like the feel, like I'd never before felt the feeling of like so much agency, so much. Like I really felt like I was just in another world for the few hours I was in that show. And like I also think that's a great idea for a show of like do a life in a show. It's really genius. It really it's a really great concept and I was just so blown away by it.
We're seeking that kind of stuff. That's the stuff. I mean, just that originality, that depth, this is it. I was so blown away by everything in it, and so that's what really motivated me to. And I have since seen lots of other brilliant immersive theatre shows and lots of great other experiences, but that one, like, you always remember your first one. Yeah, literally. So let's dive a little bit into the journey of experiential, I guess. I want to unpack that a little bit because you've gone on your own journey, and so I think observationally, you've also seen not only yourself develop as part of the industry. And how you've contributed to it, but also you've seen this kind of the world around you of experiential also change with you and around you. How would you let's walk through that for a moment? How has it kind of first started to kind of evolve, and then where's it kind of been kind of evolving and moving into?
Yeah, I think I felt as my career has moved and the changes. I feel like my career, when I look back on it, has mirrored the shape of the industry overall quite a lot. And I think there have been maybe 4 phases I always hate calling it an industry, but like the sector or the scene or whatever you want, whatever. But like in this experiential, in this world of experiential art and entertainment, I think there's been four major phases so far. And I think phase 1 was that kind of like very much what that show Shelf Life was part of like, it was very underground, it was very art-led, it was very avant-garde, and it was something your quirky mate did at the weekend. It wasn't And that's when you had like, this was sort of like maybe the early 2010s. And this is when you had like Punch Drunk and Yumi Bum Bum Train and Secret Cinema starting out. And that's where all of those companies came from, that very underground, very avant-garde, very art world. And I think that stuck around for a while, to like maybe the mid 2010s. And I think in the mid 2010s, you see the shift. And I think our Crystal Maze experience is a really big part of that. The shift where people are suddenly realizing, oh, this is a real business actually. And that then you start to get like big IPs, big money coming into the sector, and it starts to become very commercially exciting, right? Like like the sort of business of it starts to really come together. And then you have COVID, you have the early 2020s, and I think where we've been since the early 2020s is in a place of real safety. I think both creatively and commercially, we've not been that ambitious as a sector. We've kind of nailed a formula for what works, and we stick to that. And I don't mean any disrespect by saying that. Like the shock that the pandemic did to the industry and everything else, playing it safe was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think we're moving into a fourth phase now. And I think that sense of safety and that sense of playing it safe is going to prove to be a mistake in that fourth phase, because audiences are changing, and they're changing rapidly. And I think people have gotten over the pandemic, and I think everything that's happening now in like the tech world as well is having a real impact on entertainment. And I think people now are seeking things again that are much more novel, that are much more exciting, and that are much more different. And so I think the safe choices companies have been making for the last 4 or 5 years are just not going to fly anymore. That's where I think we are at. And I think we at Secret Cinema are very aware of that. You know, we've been trying, we're being very ambitious in terms of what we do next. And we know that that's kind of the key to survival and the key to this next phase.
Yeah. What's some of the kind of cultural influences right now? What are you seeing in terms of what's impacting this shift that's kind of happening?
Yeah, I actually had a really good conversation about this yesterday. So I'm going to steal from a wonderful author called Natalina High, who is actually speaking at an event of ours in a couple of weeks' time. But I think that there's a couple of different things happening in the culture right now. I think first and foremost, I think everyone is sick of their phones. I think like people are really like, I think there's a real pervasive feeling that this little rectangle in your pocket just makes you sad. People are like, need to do things that are not looking at their phone, that are getting away from it and getting away from the algorithm in a lot of ways. And I think the antidote to that is real connection and doing things with real people.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really major trend for this year. And even since we spoke the other day, Pinterest have just announced their new ad campaign for the year, and Pinterest's new ad campaign is the best thing to do online is to find something to do offline, right? And that's Pinterest saying that. That's a digital company saying that. So I think the shift is very apparent. But the other thing then I think is a real driver, especially in the entertainment world, is this business of slop. And I think generative AI and AI slop is having a real impact on what people want from entertainment. I read a really great piece of recently. God, I really need to remember where this was, but I'll find it. But made the point of like, not all slop is AI. Like, you know, there are things, and I won't name them here, but there are TV shows and movies that human beings have worked very hard on that look identical to some AI slop.
Yeah.
And what this author Natalie pointed out to me is that like what AI is very good at is recycling things that we've done before. That's not what human creativity is.
No.
Human creativity is making up brand new stuff that no one has ever done before. And so when I say not all slop is AI, I think you're seeing a lot of entertainment media that is just recycling, that is just like repackaging stuff we've done before. And I think that will satisfy audiences to a point, but I think now audiences are really craving originality and really craving something novel. And I think the entertainment space needs to find ways to give them that. I think we're kind of really well placed to do that. But like we also need to be careful, like especially as so much of the experiential sector has become IP led.
Yeah.
We don't want to be just doing like hollow reproductions of things.
Yeah.
I think that isn't the way to kind of move forward. Nothing wrong with being IP led. Obviously, Secret Cinema are a very IP led company, but we always try and do any film we do or anything we work with, we try and do a really fresh take on. We try and do it in a brand new way. You know, we really did that with Grease last year, and we will be doing it with our new show later this year, trying to do it in a very new, exciting way and show audiences these movies in new lights.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying you can't touch IP, but I just think like just reproducing it faithfully, which is sort of what the brands would love you to do, but you sort of need to be like, you don't know it yet, but what your audience want is to see this like done in a novel, exciting way.
Absolutely. And we're seeing examples of not so novel ways recently, which no doubt we'll get onto. I just want to unpack this kind of shift as well, because what I was hearing and this kind of, it's not as simple, it's quite complicated, is that we've kind of got this, we want things to see the day of light. And that means it needs investment. It needs, like, in order to kind of bring something to life in potentially meaningful way is probably the wrong word, but to kind of build something that is potentially influences many, many people, needs that kind of mass market element, but you still need to maintain creativity as part of that. So I always find it's a balance, isn't it? You don't lose yourself in the commerciality of it, but you need it in a way, but also you're not losing the creativity, kind of how these two worlds kind of coexist.
It's so hard, but it is also like, I do really love it. I really relish the challenge of trying to figure out something that's a great creative concept that commercially works. But also not all things do.
No.
And you kind of need to figure out your kind of way around that, and try and come with a model that works both creatively and commercially.
Yeah.
And I guess when I say things have been too safe, is that like I feel like there's like only a handful of commercial models that we as a sector have been sort of like using as a bit of a crutch. And like I would love to see people trying to do more exciting things commercially as well as on a creative level.
Should we talk about projection-based experience?
Yeah, let's talk about projection-based experiences.
Just briefly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably an example of safety.
It's super safe, right? Like ultimately the reason there's so many of them is not it's not because consumers love them. It's because they're really cheap to produce. They're really cheap to produce and they're really cheap to put on. And so from an investor point of view, investors see that and they think that's great. And so that's why we've so many projection shows now. And again, not knocking projection shows, but there is too many of them out there. Like I do think like we're the profusion of them we're seeing is not to do with like audience demand. It's very much just an investor push rather than an audience pull.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do you think they serve the purpose though, projection-based experiences, in the sense of giving accessibility or inviting the public, the general public, who perhaps wouldn't even think about experiential just in that form, perhaps to engage in something like that, to go, okay, this is cool, you know, for their first timers, not engaged in something, to then actually wanting more, so creating demand through that. Maybe we look back in 10 years ago, actually, projection-based served the purpose. It was there in our in our journey.
And I think look, I've been to some really great projection shows. And I do think when done well, it is really amazing. And I do think like it's very interesting because it is kind of like just it's an exhibition experience, and people kind of get what that is, so they know what they know what they're going to. And you know, one of the challenges I think of like reaching new audiences, which is something we've been very passionate about in Secret Cinema over the last year.
Yeah.
Especially, we found when we were doing Grease, that our marketing very quickly became, we just have to explain to people what this is. You know, we sort of ditched all of the very kind of persuasive hooks, and it just became like, here is literally what happens. Here's what happens when you buy a ticket and arrive. This is what you're going to experience. And I think that is also because of a shift in our culture as well. I think beforehand, like, you know, 10 years ago, there was a lot of mystique around the industry, and people were a lot more trusting to part with like 20, 30 pounds to do something they'd never heard of because a friend of theirs said it was cool.
Yes.
Whereas now, you know, you Google the menu for every restaurant you go to before you go out, right? We don't part with our money anymore unless we can verify that we're going to have a good time.
Yes.
And so that's the way consumers have really changed. And I do think that is because of like the internet, and that's because of all of these other things. But like people now are like, well, no, I need to know what it is. you've had people being like, I need to know what it is. Do I need to eat beforehand? What kind of shoes do I wear? All of these questions that you simply wouldn't have been able to answer 10 years ago. When we advertised that heist show I was talking about earlier, we literally just told people, you're going to pull off a heist, be here at this time. That is all of we took a grand total of 3 photographs of the entire show, and we did that on the last night. Like, there was no media about it. There was no explanation of really what it was. People really bought into the mystique.
Yeah.
But people don't really like that anymore.
That's a shame.
It is a shame. But it's one of the things, because a secret cinema, right? We used to not even tell people what the film was.
Yeah.
We used to do a couple of clues, and that was it. And I remember the first one I went to was The Shawshank Redemption, and I was told to dress in a suit, and I arrived in a suit, and I went to my court hearing, and I was sent to life in prison, and I was sent into a side room, told to take my suit off and put some prison overalls on, and that was a great flip reversal moment that you can only do if people don't know what they're coming to.
Yes.
What we found is that that kind of, and it upsets our core fans deeply that the shows are not secret anymore. I think in an ideal world we still would do the odd still secret show anymore, but commercially it just doesn't really work anymore.
No.
People have changed. The world has changed.
Yeah.
And we have to change. We have to change with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Mum Train's a great one. It's such a legacy one, and it's still got because of obviously NDA. You have to sign an NDA before you enter, even as a volunteer, and then you go in and you don't quite know what to expect. You just lean in. I mean, I volunteered last year. It was amazing.
I've heard. Yeah,
it's stunning. So it's just again, it's just that I love the mystique ones. That's my own personal preference. Yeah, definitely. Can I just also ask, because I think there was definitely in the audience, there are practitioners, experienced designers listening in on this. Mm-hmm. How have you developed in this time as well? What's been some of your real kind of anchor learnings, and how you've then applied those as you've kind of grown and worked on different productions and evolved yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I think gameplay and game design has been very core to my process and kind of always has been. I've always really come at it thinking of the audience member as a protagonist, as a kind of player in a game, and try to design the experience in that way with little soft nudges along the way of do this now, follow this person, take this person's hand, go this way. And I've always found that to be very powerful and very interesting. But also, the thing about game design is it is a system, right? And it gets very tempting to do things a bit by rote. And I got to a point where I designed quite a lot of escape rooms, and I realized that I was just sort of filling in a spreadsheet, right? I was just going pure paint by numbers. Yeah, you do this here because we know that works. You do that here, so you know that works. And so it's been an interesting challenge, since starting at Secret Cinema and learning the way we do stuff here and what's expected here. I've tried to really try and come at things differently and in new ways, because creative excellence is such a core part of what we do here at Secret Cinema. I was day one, I was told creative excellence is the thing. And so how do you allow people a more novel experience, and kind of talking about those ideas of novelty and originality. One thing that I've learned since starting here is, and it's what Matt Costain, our senior creative director, talks about all the time, is what is the big idea of the show? And so the big idea is the overarching concept for the show, and that could be a sentence, that could be a couple of sentences, paragraph, but ultimately what is the big idea of the show, and how does everything else feed into that? So at Greece, the big idea is step into Rydell. So everything about it is you're really at Rydell High. You're really a student. All of this is really happening in the world of Rydell High right now. And that kind of filters through everything in Greece. Nice. And so that's been a really great learning for me of okay, great. When you approach things, we need to go, what's the big idea? And how does everything else filter into that?
How easy or difficult is it to get to that? Sometimes boiling it down to that because sometimes simplicity can be quite a process to get to that, because you might end up slightly not in the wrong direction but with a direction, But then it kind of, as you go further through, you go, oh, hang on, it's causing a bit of friction, or there's some tension in it.
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
something Kat, who is our MD at the studio, has taught me is you kind of have to go deep before to go wide. Like you have to kind of you have to go deep into something and understand it deeply and do the kind of like very detail heavy work in order to have the level of understanding to be like, all right, so the big idea therefore needs to be this.
Yes.
So you need to kind of do that level of understanding and have that level of depth to it, because like it can be quite tempting, and it certainly was tempting for me. It's the big idea, so it needs to be very surface level. It needs to be very kind of it needs to be very high level, top level. But actually, you need to go deep down, and you need to understand all the little aspects before you can be like, oh right, therefore the big idea needs to be this.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about Greece?
Yeah, I would love to. And actually, a good learning about Greece as well, like from my kind of like experience design perspective, is also like how these shows need to be good nights out. How these things need to be like what you're really giving someone is what someone's really giving you is an evening of their time. So how do you make sure that's a worthwhile evening for them? And thinking about therefore all of the other touch points, like being able to have a good meal, being able to have a drink, being able to catch up with their friends, all of these things that make a good evening out. How do you bake all of that into an experience as well has been really good. But yeah, so Greece is, as we said, we bring the world of Rydell High to life, and you step into Rydell High as a student. So you first enter like a carnival area, outdoors, and that's kind of a bit of a pre-show hangout area. And then we start the film on the big screen, and then everyone heads inside into school, and then the show kind of just runs from there. A couple of things that are different about Greece compared to kind of previous secret cinemas as well is with Greece we wanted to do something different in that we wanted to do immersive theater without the FOMO. So previous shows, our sets were very Warren-y, lots of corridors, lots of small rooms. So everyone kind of saw something a bit different. And we decided we wanted to change that for this show. And so the way Greece works is the sight lines are incredible. You could always see everything that is happening, and especially for those big musical moments when everyone comes together. Everyone has a great view. Everyone can see what's going on, and everyone can kind of move around to different spaces but see what's going on. The other thing we did differently is that we changed our relationship to the film. So I don't know if people know, but how we used to work is we would run a kind of immersive world up to the film screening that was maybe 2-3 hours long, and then everyone would sit down in kind of a themed in-world cinema space, and we'd all watch the movie together. And we'd like bring to life certain aspects of the movie. We'd have characters come on and do like mirror moments and things like that. But with Greece, we decided we'd flip the script. And so what we did is we showed the movie and the live show at the exact same time. So the movie played on about 32 different screens all around the venue, and our live actors performed at the same time. And we had a camera crew, so we sometimes John Travolta was on the screen, and sometimes it was our Danny who was on the screen, and sort of played a lot with the relationship between the live and the film. And we also had a live band, so a live band playing all of the tracks. Even if you saw John Travolta singing on screen, you weren't hearing John Travolta. You were hearing our actors. So yeah, a very big and Matt calls this our one world format. So like splitting up the film, making the film work differently, but also people really feeling like that they're at the heart of it, that they're really living inside the movie.
Yeah.
But also, like, coming back to what I was saying earlier, what's also great about Greece is it's a really good, like, night out. Like, you grab a few drinks, the tunes are really good dancing tunes, you have a chat with your friends, you have a bit of a boogie. It's a really good night out is why it works really well as a show.
So I just want to ask you, because there was something that I believe I read somewhere that you experimented with also from a ticket perspective, which I was really intrigued by, because there was a multi-levels where you had your VIPs, or where they could come in before and do some like do some dance moves before the show starts, which I thought was really cool. Gave them kind of access to that. Was that right?
Yeah. So we had three ticket types.
Yeah.
In the first outing. So we had what we called our standard immersive ticket, which was you turn up to the show, you don't have an allocated seat, you can roam about, stand where you like. And that's obviously our main ticket, and that's what most people do. And And then we also had our what we called we didn't call them VIP. We decided that language wasn't helpful.
Yeah. No, not for this movie.
Yeah. And so we called these kind of Roman return seats. So what they were is seats where you had an allocated seat with a good view. You had a table. You could leave your stuff there. You could leave your drink there. You can meet back up there with people. But you're also free to go anywhere in the show and look at any bit of the show. And those Roman return seats sold out instantly.
Interesting.
Which was really interesting. And also like what it enabled, to our point about accessibility, is it enabled people to come see the show who might not have wanted to stand for 2 hours, right? Or not that you have to stand the entire time on the show, there's plenty of seats, but knowing you have a guaranteed seat gave a lot of people the peace of mind they needed to kind of book. Like my mum's in her 70s, and she came with her 3 sisters who are also all in their 70s, and they probably wouldn't have come had it not been for that seating choice. So that's been a really great learning for us, is that like we can do an immersive experience and there can be seats, but we can have people with the freedom to move around, and that makes it more accessible.
Is there another subsection in that as well of theatre goers who perhaps haven't been to immersive before, are used to sitting down in a theatre?
Yeah. And I think so. It's because we have access to the Todaytix mailing list, because we're part of the Todaytix group. We also wanted to make a show that felt like a secret cinema show that worked for the Todaytix audience, that was used to that more kind of theatre setup.
Yes.
So that was really great for us as well.
Smart.
Yeah.
And it sold well? I mean, did really well?
Greece did really well. Greece is one of the best performing secret cinemas ever.
Whoa.
It's beaten only by like some of like the biggest movies we've done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which like Star Wars and things like that. But Greece is especially the run we did last summer, one of our most successful shows we've ever done. So we're really delighted with it.
Fantastic. We're going to see that back on the.
Yeah, so it's coming back, reopening. Oh, I don't have the date to hand, but it is.
That's okay.
It is July, August
this year.
Amazing. Yeah.
What did you learn from? What did you take from it, from that production? What did you learn? Any new learnings for you?
I think one of my big learnings, 2 big learnings from that production, is just the straightforward power of joy. Like Grease is a really joyous show. You come out of it smiling, you're clapping, you're singing, you're dancing, you're just having a really positive time. And like obviously I know that joy and happiness are important, but when you see it 20 times, because I saw the show 20 times, and I was still enjoying Grease lifing on my 20th time, genuinely. So, and like the power of joy I think is really important. And then also I think is really important is understanding that we are not just entertainment businesses. And Greece probably taught me this better than anything else. We're not just entertainment businesses. We are also hospitality businesses, right? And getting that hospitality stuff right is I think really where Greece like sort of managed to kind of get to that next level, is getting that hospitality stuff right.
In what way?
Like getting the drink service right, getting the seating right, having the great front of house staff, getting like having there to be like themed food that worked with the film, and having the kind of pre-show that worked well for all of that. I think the hospitality side of Greece, was a real success, and understanding that that's the kind of night out you're providing people.
Yeah. Do you know the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
I do not, actually.
Please read it.
I
It's
will
amazing. But the author of that, his business, he actually just designed the hospitality for the recent NASA moon visit.
Oh, really?
So they actually redesigned from a hospitality lens, and they applied some really subtle things in the journey for the astronauts. Fascinating. Even just subtle like lexicon, like language from copy that to you're welcome.
Yeah.
Lovely little tweaks like that. So I think hospitality plays it does play a big part, actually.
It does, and it's interesting. So one of my best friends, he works in like Michelin star restaurants in Denmark.
Nice.
And he told me, we were having a conversation one day, and he was telling me about his service principles, and his service principles read like experience design. And I've never talked to anyone in experience design who's thought of this, and I now say it all the time. But he goes, every evening, every night someone has with us has peaks and troughs. You're going to have an amazing glass of wine, which is up here, and you're going to pay for the bill, which is down here. And he said, our job as the service staff is to make sure those peaks are as high as possible, and to smooth out those troughs and make sure that those dips are as unnoticeable as they can be, or make sure they don't happen at all, and really smooth that so it's up and up and up. And you can do all sorts of things that. And he says it's a really straightforward, silly example, but like there's a reason Italian restaurants give you a shot of limoncello with your bill. Makes you feel less bad about the bill, and so like it's thinking about principles like that as well that I think are really helpful to experienced designers.
So what else happening at Secret Cinema right now?
So a bunch of stuff is happening. We've just announced our new venue, which is our first permanent location, which is going to be in Greenwich, and that is going to be where a lot of our shows are going to sit for the foreseeable. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you what show is going into it, but we will be announcing it very soon. Hopefully, maybe even by the time this episode is out.
Okay. I might even cut something in somehow.
Yeah. If you can
quick flash up of what it is.
If you can insert, and it's like it's this actually. But we're not yet at the point of telling you. And then what I'm primarily focused on is about just before I joined, we launched our studio arm, which is Studio Secret Cinema, which is our Secret Cinema's first kind of B2B arm. So we're a creative agency with the Secret Cinema talent. So we offer the Secret Cinema creative and production services to brands, but also other entertainment businesses, and working across all sorts of different fields like events, experiences, creative consultancy, working with theme parks, doing all sorts of different things. And so my role primarily is about growing that, and getting us in front of as many interesting and different great partners that we could be working with. We've done some really brilliant projects in the last year. We did a really brilliant project for Netflix over in LA in May of last year, which was for a film called Fear Street Prom Queen, which was fantastic. And we also did a lot of brilliant work with a video game company called Supercell. So we did, you might know Ashley Wagner, so we did their San Diego Comic-Con activation, which was so great to go to San Diego Comic-Con. And we also did their esports finals halftime show. So we brought like an in-game K-pop band to life. And we also we just finished working with Frontier Development, who are a video game company, and they've just done the latest Jurassic World video game. So we brought that to life and were able to build a miniature Jurassic Park in the middle of London, which felt so great.
Wow.
And that was just up for a few awards recently, which is really great. It was a really great experience. So what we're trying to do now is kind of get the word out, to get people to understand that we offer these services. And I try and say to our potential clients that there's 4 things that ultimately I think we're really good at and that we know better than most of the people. And that is 1, like IP fidelity, how to bring an IP, how to bring a brand to life in a way that feels novel but also feels faithful. And number 2 is engaging with fans. All the work we do is fans are at the core of it. So engaging with fans is really important. And also live entertainment. Like we have been fortunate enough over the 18 years of our existence to work with some of the best artists in the UK, and be that like singers, dancers, circus performers. We've got such an extensive network of people.
Oh, interesting.
And then finally, world building and creating worlds that audiences really want to belong to and really want to feel like they're part of, and feel like they're worlds that have that make them feel like they're part of a community and not just like you faithfully recreated a set.
Yeah.
So those are the things I think we as studio are really strong as, and trying to meet as many interesting people from the world of brands and the world of theme parks and the world of live entertainment as possible.
Tell me, just for the audience, you've been here now a few years. Share something that typically no one knows about Secret Cinema working here.
Working here.
Yeah.
The thing that surprised me, and the thing that surprised nearly everyone when I say it to them, is how small of a company we still are. Like you sort of think with 18 years of history and all the things you've done, you sort of could presume about 100 people work here.
Yeah.
But we're a core team of like maybe 11.
Wow.
Like, now 11 phenomenally talented, phenomenally clever people. And obviously that scales up massively when we do a production. Yeah. But like really the core team is quite small and gets a wild amount done for how small the team is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that. Yeah. Because you need, the talent wise, you said you've got a huge network. So you kind of plug in and apply what you need as and when. But that's cool. I mean, that nucleus is really key as well, creatively.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you, just pick up on something else that you said earlier. Creative excellence. There's something that when you came into Secret Cinema, it was very apparent. It was communicated to you. What does that mean in this context?
So it means a couple of different things. We have a little pre-show mantra that we do with all of our staff, and one of the lines from that is, "We work together to give our audience the best night out of their year." And I think another company saying that would sound hyperbolic, but like we do mean it. A secret cinema show for a lot of people is the best night out of their year. There are people who went to Blade Runner or Stranger Things or whatever years and years ago who still remember it really fondly. Who still be like, that was an amazing night I have. So like that is the standard that we hold ourselves to, and that's always what we're trying to hit. And creating those amazing wow moments. I don't know if did you see our Star Wars Empire Strikes Back by any chance?
I didn't see that one, no.
So there's a moment in that, and I think about this all the time. Like this is sort of like when you said the word creative excellence to me, this is the image I got. There's a moment during the trench run at the end of A New Hope. The entire audience is in this big kind of trench space, and we flew an X-wing over all of the audience's heads. With a crane, with all of these things. And that was a moment of like, we need to do something truly excellent to be like, oh shit, I really am in Star Wars now. And so like, we're always aiming for those things. We're aiming for things that are unforgettable, that people will hold on to and will remember for the rest of their lives.
Oh, that's amazing. Who wouldn't love an X-wing? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Wow. So Dean, we're sitting here today, 2026.
Mm-hmm.
What's the possible, like, where are we going right now? We've talked a little bit, obviously, about the journey that we're on. We're in the kind of moving out of this potential safety zone that the industry's been in. What are some of the possible outcomes or ways or channels you think kind of we could continue to evolve? What's possible? Where do you think we are?
Yeah, I think a couple of different things are happening for sure. Caveat of like the global economy and et cetera, et cetera. I think we are going to. I do genuinely believe, provided again the entire economy doesn't go sideways, but I do genuinely believe that we are only at the beginning of this boom in the experience economy. That I do think our best days are still ahead of us, and I do genuinely believe that. And I think like people are. I think all of those factors that we talked about earlier of people like wanting novelty and wanting real human connection, and wanting to get away from like tech and their phones to a certain extent, is going to drive more and more people to seeking out novel and interesting experiences. And I think we as makers have to be ready for that and be ready to kind of serve those people and bring those people together. Because I think it's going to be a very exciting time. So I think we'll see stuff like secret cinema become even more mainstream than it is now. I think we're on a trajectory to become like the immersive experiential, like mainstream West End. That's kind of where we're going. But my hope for other things is I hope we see a sort of revival in like the middle of the sector, because I think at the moment like the sector feels very top heavy. There's a lot of very good, very brilliant companies that have been doing this for nearly 20 years, like us, like Punch Drunk, that sort of thing. But like I'd love to see more smaller things. I'd love to see more companies like Phantom Peak, for example. I'd love to see more people trying stuff out, and I think we will see that. I think probably VC money needs to get a bit looser and be more willing to fund interesting and exciting things, and hopefully it'll do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think we've got a pretty bright future ahead of us as a sector.
Yeah. What's you're working on a smaller experience yourself at the moment, and maybe this is a representation of that, of these kind of more nichey, interesting kind of.
Yeah, so I'm making an experience called Alibi. So this is with my secret cinema hat off, and I just Dean Rodgers hat on.
Let's go.
So I'm making an experience called Alibi. I'm doing it with my friend Tom Black, who created an experience called Jury Games a couple of years ago, which did really well. He's also one of the minds behind Bridge Command. But Alibi is a murder mystery experience for 12 people. So like really small, really intimate. And it's a social deduction game. So it's all about bringing people together and effectively just giving them the tools to kind of have a conversation and lie to each other and figure out who is lying. The whole thing is like kind of like a traitors meets true crime sort of setup. But it's based off this phenomenon out of China called Jubensha, which is this like really massive thing in China that hasn't made its way over here to the West meaningfully yet. But it's like the main thing young Chinese people are doing on their nights out. And it's like you'll go to a little cafe and there'll be 6 of you in a group, and you each get a little character booklet, and you read this character booklet, and it tells you everything about your character in the murder mystery, and then you just talk to the other people around you for the next like 3 hours trying to solve this murder mystery, and you all know different things, and one of you's the killer, and one, and all this stuff, and it sounds so simple, but it is huge in China.
Wow.
And what it feels to me, what it reminds me a lot of, is where escape rooms were sort of 10 years ago, when escape rooms were this like weird little thing out of Eastern Europe, and then suddenly took over the world for a little bit. It feels like that moment again. So we want to kind of tap into that trend while it's still like in its infancy here in the UK, at least, and launch that. But yeah, we ran Alibi for a week last year, and it was sold out, and we were listed as one of No Proscenium's best experiences of 2025, which is not bad for only a week. So we're very excited to give it another outing now. So yeah, it opens next week on the 21st of April, Theatre Deli in Leadenhall Street. And
it's running longer than a week?
It's running for 4 weeks this time, but hopefully, if it does really well, it runs for longer than 4 weeks. Let's see. But it's been very fulfilling for me to do a smaller project alongside of it. That's been like a really great kind of creative outlet. Look, I love doing these huge things for big brands with like massive budgets, but there is something genuinely very fulfilling about making something that like actually only I and Tom have to think it's good. Like it's like we have to like it is the first thing, and that's really nice. And it's also been really nice. And again, when you're doing all of these huge projects, it's really nice to do something where you're like, oh, I do actually have to do all of this myself. I really do have to drive down to Kent this weekend and pick up a couple of chairs and tables so that we've got a set. And it's nice to kind of get back to your roots in that way as well.
Yeah, it's nice. That resourcefulness that has to come with these things. We're feeling it right now with the podcast. Dean, thank you so much for inviting us into Secret Cinema. And,
no, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a long time in the making, but it's been really fascinating to hear your journey. How can the audience get in touch with you? What's the best way to contact you, connect with you, follow you?
The best way to contact me personally is LinkedIn. So I'm just Dean Rodgers on LinkedIn. So find me that way, follow me there, connect with me there, message me there. That's the best way to do it.
Fantastic. We'll put all the links obviously in the show notes for everybody. And again, thanks very much, Dean. Pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Cheers. Thank you.